my life in this industry, I've been a thief. All my life, I looked at other products and stole great ideas from them. The IP laws in the world are very flexible, and we are allowed to do that. And there are two ways, and you know what? It's called the art of copy-paste. And everyone in our industry does that. The coders are copy-pasting code, and the designers are copy-pasting design. It's okay. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. And there are two approaches, and by the way, I'm not support any of these approaches. I think both of them work, as long as you are delivery-oriented. There are two approaches to take another product and do a copy-paste from it. One is actually look at a product that is very good. Look at 10 products, see which one is best, and say, this is the one I like most. I will take this product and I will improve upon it. The most known example for this is, there is a product called Android. It is very similar to another product called iPhone. There was no IP break when Google went and did Android. They basically looked at the iPhone product and they copy-pasted it. It's the truth. Everybody knows it. Everybody who has minimal understanding looks at these two products and says this product was stolen from the other one. I know I'm blaming Google here and doing something terrible, but it's the fact. We all do that. And that's one attitude. But there is another attitude as well that is a little more complex and I think more challenging, that actually I find today works for me better. Imagine that, and this is actually what Steve Jobs did with the iPhone. I know now it will sound to you amazing, but once, before the iPhone, there was a company called Nokia. Back at the time of Nokia, I had a startup and I sold products to mobile carriers. And I talked a lot about, and there was a term called the price of not being Nokia. Nokia was such a dominant predator in the market of mobile phones back at the time that there was a price for not being a Nokia even if you had a better product. And when Steve Jobs did the iPhone, what he did, he looked at Nokia, that was his benchmark, that's what he was looking like, but unlike what Google did with his product, he said, how do I make a product that is the most different product from the Nokia product? That is there is a market dominator and I'm going to look at it, I'm going to learn it very well. And I'm going to do something that is the total opposite. And these are basically the two attitudes you can do when you take a product. Never avoid researching other products. Always copy-paste, but decide how you copy-paste. If you copy-paste, I'm taking this and copying it and I'm doing a better job. Or I'm taking this and I'm doing the complete opposite because I want to present to the market something new. Both attitudes work. Depends on your personality, on your character, on the market need, on the occasion. But both of them are legit. And both of them can work and both of them can result in delivery. Another important thing when we do a research on a new product, and I'm saying here things that may sound trivial to you, but believe it or not, many people avoid doing them, is talk. Talk to potential users, talk to your colleagues, if you can talk to your competitors. Talk to as many people as you like and try getting advices. Now the nice thing about doing product management is you can listen to all these people like, talking around, but you make the decision finally. But what I'm encouraging you when you do research on a product is at least get this info. Talk to them. And most importantly, the guys that are the most important to talk to are the potential users of your product. Because eventually they are the judge that will decide if this product is going to be a success or a failure. Okay. Then comes the wireframes. Wireframes, for me, are the heart and the soul of product management. I'm going to show you an example in a second because you know what I'm talking about. This is a wireframe. A wireframe is kind of a detailed, it's the screens of your MVP basically. That's a single screen of a wireframe. A wireframe of a product would be basically all the screens of your product. So first of all, it's your MVP product. It's a product that you strip from all the extra features and you make a minimal product. By the way, it's easy to see that this one is the first wireframe of the app market I showed you a few minutes ago. That's how it began. By the way, you can see it's quite similar. We did not do that much. I mean, it's different, but it's not that different. So it's your MVP screens. They are detailed. As you can see, the menus are here, the buttons are here. There is this, what I called prejudice. You should leave the location of buttons and menus to designers. No, this is part of product management. This is part of the wireframe. It can be changed afterwards, but you must decide on that. They are done in details and they are done in scale. I remember that I had a fresh product management that came to work for me for Wix, And he had to do a product called the Wix Arena. You can look at it on the internet. It's quite a cool product today. And he had to do kind of a box with a menu. And he did a screen in his presentation and increased the size of the box to the whole screen rather than the original size of the box, which was very small. And asked him why it's not in scale, why did it big? So he gave me the answer of the wolf in the Little Red Riding Hood. So I can see this better. But you know, if you don't do it in scale, you will not see it better. You'll actually see it not in the way the users are going to see that. And we're going to talk about this in a moment in more details. So they're done in scale. And another important thing about the wireframes, you aspire at least to represent all the use cases. It's actually a lot of work. You do wireframes that represent all the menus and dialogues and things in your program. And I'll explain in a minute why it is that important and why you should dedicate that much time to this when you do proper product management. Now, we have this tendency when we do a product to imagine people use it for a long time, and then it's kind of in an ordinary usage, and then we do the wireframes. As an example, the first wireframe of this app market was a wireframe of the app market when it is full of apps. But actually, the interesting thing about wireframes is that the three most important things about wireframes are the extreme cases. First, a new product. A product that was not used yet. I'm working now on a project here in Lithuania with some people here in the audience of a Wix application that takes your story Etsy. And it's very nice that once you connected your story Etsy and you have it in front of you, all of your products are there and it's very cool. But what we should have thought in the beginning is how the product looks when it's new. Well, there are no products in there, right? So what will we have? A blank screen? Will you use it to explain the users how to work with the product? Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe we put dummy data here, a fake data that will allow the users to see how the store will look eventually. All these are legitimate answers as long as you think and draw them around. New product. Another thing you should draw around when you do your wireframes is a full product. What happens, let's say, if the ordinary case is a case of 10 products inside the store, what happens to this user with 100 products in the store? How does this store look? And another thing that people tend to overlook is what happens when things go wrong. What happens when I have a bug? What happens when my application crashes? If you will not do a wireframe that will detail this, only luck will determine what your users will see when something goes wrong. And trust me, this is a very important moment, a moment when something goes wrong. Because if you handle it properly, you won't be left without your users. But if you don't handle it properly, when something goes wrong, users go and never come back. So that's basically what wireframes are. There is a right order to work when you do a product, I believe. And the right order is first do the wireframes, then let the designers design the wireframes to a very beautiful product, and then give it to the software engineer to develop them to something that works. Now, why is this? Why is this order that important? Because on 1 hour you work on a wireframe, it will take you more or less 10 hours to design them to a beautiful product in the designer. And it will take you 100 hours to develop them actually to a working product. So it kind of be really stupid not to do the wireframes or do only part of the wireframes and then let the software engineers do them, see that the product doesn't function properly and go back and do the wireframes again. We're not talking about the design that is shoved in the middle. So one would have expected that this order, wireframes, design, development, would be something very trivial and everybody would work with. Trust me, I spend about 10% of my time telling to people to do this in the right order. Because you know, this looks very easy when we talk about this in this room, but I'm working right now here in Lithuania with the new Wix Lithuania office on an amazing project. I won't tell you what it is because it's kind of still secret. And the software engineers are that eager to develop and start taking this idea and turn it to reality that before the design was finished, and actually before the wireframes were finished, they started writing code. But guess what? It's kind of a total waste of 100 hours when we can save 1 hour by doing the wireframe properly. So I would encourage you to keep this order in the right form. So what are again the two guidelines of wireframe? So I'm going back to this very important term I used in the beginning, the MVP, which is the heart of the no-man approach. And there is a sentence I once heard from a product manager that I like a lot. I just read it to you. It's better to have half the feature and the product that kick ass than double the features and half-ass product. And there is nothing more true. Like if I want you to take one sentence from this presentation, that is the sentence. More features are not only more work, which takes us away from production and delivery. More features is actually a longer learning curve for the users. They have to learn a more complex product. And believe me, as hard as it is to create, it's 10 times harder to maintain it. You have to debug it and QA it, and users are asking you questions in support about this. Very tedious work. If this feature is not critical, you can save all this work. Why not? And another thing that I want you to remember when you do wireframes is that wireframes is not a dictatorship. Many young product managers look at wireframes as I decide, I do the wireframe, that is the truth, I give it to everybody and they do according to what I say. Wireframes are actually the complete opposite. Wireframes is a way to create a conversation between you and other people in your team. A product manager wants to talk about his product with his developers. They are one of the best ones to tell him if he did something wrong or if he does something right. He wants to talk to the marketing people. He wants to talk to the management. He wants to talk to support. In the design stage, he also wants to talk already to the users and show them what he's about to do. So the wireframe is not a way of a product manager to tell anybody what to do. It's a way of a product manager to show ideas to people and create an intelligent conversation. And by the way, I believe that the conversation about a product with no wireframes is a blur. There's nothing intelligent about it. If you don't see the product in front of your eyes, every conversation you do about it is just a waste of time. But it's a means of communication, not dictatorship. You can change it all the time. Another good thing about wireframe is that they allow you to do a sanity check. And the first thing I check when I do a wireframe is, does people understand what the product do from the wireframe? And you know what? It's very nice. Because if they don't understand, I didn't do a good job, my product is not understandable, and eventually when I take it out, people will not understand what I did. So that's the best sanity check you can have. Another thing, that if you do your wireframes in scale, you can actually see in your eyes if you have room for all the features you want. If we go back to the example I showed a second ago, you can see here that we wanted to do 7 things, and there is room for the 7 things. We wanted to present 8 applications. There is room to present 8 applications. You have no way to know if you don't draw it how many applications are going to go in there. And another thing that it allows us to do, another sanity check, is we can actually look at the product and see, do we really need this? Because we actually do all the process of the user as he goes through the product when we do the wireframe. As an example, I wanted in the app market to have a feature called My Apps. A screen where the user is going to have all their apps inside that are already installed inside the app market. And when I tried to do the wireframes, I had very hard work. The flow was not natural. And then I understood that I actually don't need this My Applications page. I killed it. I saved development time. I saved myself time. And it was never developed. By the way, it's not there to this very day. We actually did not need it. And I had no idea until I drew the wireframes that we don't need it. There are basically 2 ways when you design. When you design the wireframes, you basically design the product. That's why I'm talking about this so long, because the issue of this conversation is product management. And there are basically 2 philosophies. By the way, both are legitimate. I tend towards one. I'll tell you in a second which one. I call them the Android approach and the iPhone approach. The first is heavy menus with lots of options, maybe hidden in advanced feature. And this is the Android approach. If you have an Android phone, you can basically change everything. And that's one of the biggest advantages many people claim of Android. So there's lots of options and it's nice. We pay a price for this. There are overwhelming settings. It kind of helps you not to decide things. Do I really need to decide what is the application that will happen when I click on an email and open a web page? So in Android they say, yes, I need to decide. So I should have a menu where I decide this. It serves the need of every user is different. But well, guess what? It's true that every user is different. But, you know, people tend to be similar to one another. And there is a rule called the 80-20 rule. It says 80% of the people prefer something, and 20% of the people prefer something else. So one should ask the question, should I really sacrifice the simplicity of the product and make a more complex product for the 20% to use it just the way they like? Or do I do a product that fits 80% of the users, the iPhone approach, and make a simpler product? So in the iPhone approach, basically the product manager makes the decisions for the user. There are much less options inside the product. It creates a simpler product that is less overwhelming. And there is less development and faster launch and easier maintenance. So it basically serves our need of delivery-oriented product manager. So you can understand exactly what approach I like. I like the iPhone approach. But you know what? It's so hard in real life because sometimes I find myself having two things that I really don't know. And you know what I say in these cases to my product managers? If it's really you don't know, so it's not doesn't really matter, yeah? Because if you really don't know what option it is, so apparently it's not that important. And if it is really a question of life and death, choose one and go with it. Worst comes to worst, in the second phase of the product, change it to the other project. Don't worry. But I don't think that the fact we are not sure, we are afraid to decide which option is better, gives us the privilege to add settings and complexity to our users. I think it's something that is immoral. Don't be afraid, make a decision. But yet, these two approaches exist in our industry today, so they're both legitimate. I tend towards the second one. Before we proceed to the continuance of the life cycle, I want to talk to you about alternatives to wireframes. Wireframes, although for me, they are the core of product management and they are the most trivial thing to do. They are kind of a new thing. They were introduced to the industry not so many years ago. And basically, there are two approaches that still exist in the industry that are an alternative to wireframes. And I would feel very bad if I would not share this with you, because otherwise I will not do my job properly, although I'm a great deliverer in wireframes. So what are these two other options? One of them that I really hate is specs. I still wrote specs in the beginning of my career. There are very long Word documents detailing every feature of the application. I have a theory actually that nobody reads them. Sometimes when I used to put like weird sentences inside the long specs. Oh, 100 pages is for a simple product, by the way, is not a long spec. Nobody reads them, they're very unclear, that's at least my opinion. But you know what? People still use them. What are the pros of specs on top of wireframes? There is a rumor that it's easier to create checklists from them. I actually heard this from a QA person in Wix.